Wednesday. Hi, Nick.
Hello, how you doing?
Good to have you here. I'm very well. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yes, I'm on fine form. We're over the midweek hump now. It's Wednesday, so yeah, I'm already looking at the weekend. I'm like, yeah.
And when I tagged along, you had a nice playlist going on as well. So definitely, I feel the vibe from
yeah,
here.
yeah. I had
Nice.
to. I like to listen to my jams. A bit of
Good.
music kind of put me into the zone. I think listen to music is for me anyway. It puts you in certain moods. So I find it helps me when I'm creating. If I need to evoke a certain mood, I'll put on a certain kind of music, and that makes me feel that way to help me write or produce video or whatever I'm doing. So
I love it. I mean, definitely on that topic, I literally screamed at my CrossFit trainer this morning because we were working out, and the music was like chill vibes. We're not chilling here. Like, give us something to push us. So yeah,
you
I
you
hear
can't.
you.
Put on some, kind of, I don't know, Beethoven or something, and it's really kind of like, how are you gonna work out to that? So yeah. I think that's
Exactly.
there's probably neuroscience behind that as well, as to why people have certain
True.
like road rage, or they have accidents if they listen to like really like high tempo music or some thrash metal or something like that. It's like,
Yeah, definitely. I'm sensitive to that. So, for anyone who hasn't met Nick, welcome. And for anyone who hasn't come to one of those sessions before, welcome. We are definitely on for one of those amazing things. I was just saying to Nick, to be honest, selfishly speaking, I know I'm going to have a masterclass in personal branding, which I'm very excited about. Would I be okay to share a bit more about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Nick. I run a company called Storyscale, and we help companies. We help take the way I kind of summarize it is we help companies do more of this, which is to generate more revenue, more pipeline, more inbound opportunities, more growth for their companies and the people that work for them. But what we're actually doing in secret over here, which is the thing that I get out of bed for, is we're empowering people, giving them a voice, a shared sense of purpose, and allowing them to be themselves on social. And it's the most rewarding part of my job, seeing people flourish and be themselves. And conversely, by doing this, by being a valued member of that team and feeling like you can be yourself at work, it makes more of this, which is awesome. So that's what I do
Yes.
in a nutshell.
Ooh, I definitely want to talk more of these, and I'm pointing at my screen at obviously your left hand, I guess it is. But definitely, this is the topic. Yes. No, the other. Yes. This is definitely today's topic. So I know obviously we had full disclosure, everyone, we really had a cool chat that we should have probably recorded when we first brainstormed on this session. We've talked about obviously the importance of values. We've talked about the whole theme when it comes to personal branding, and obviously Nick brainstormed the title being the philosophy of personal branding. So tell me more. What do you see as the philosophy that is behind personal branding?
I guess for me, the reason I call it a philosophy is because I don't think you can build out a personal brand if you don't know who you are, and that comes from a very deep place inside you when you're building out a personal brand. My personal brand was kind of forged in the fires of COVID. Had quite a bit of a kind of breakdown, I suppose. Had a really bad day one day and was really depressed. And I was like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. So I kind of hit a brick wall, and I was like, I've had enough. And I decided to publicly share my story that day, and it was one of the most exhilarating, frightening, terrifying experiences of my life. I'm not saying that in order to build a personal brand, you have to share something deeply personal about yourself,
Yeah.
but there's an element of kind of going deep with this stuff to figure out who you are. Now, some people do know who they are. They know what their value sets are. They know who they are as a person. It's much easier to build a personal brand off of those building blocks. But I think what a lot of people do, and I was certainly doing it when I started on the platform, I didn't really have, I guess, what you would call a personal brand. I was putting out content that I felt resonated with me. And I think what a lot of us do subconsciously through our content is we talk about our core value sets. If you go back and look at previous posts that you've done or things that you've done that aren't necessarily all work related, you can see subconsciously some of your core value sets kind of leaking through into that content. So I did it subconsciously, had a kind of moment of revelation, and then thought of it more consciously. So I probably rather.
Nice. Just to check, sorry for interrupting you. In terms of audio, I can't hear you. I can hear you a little bit more muffled. Can you try now?
Who, me?
Yes, you're better now. You're back. Yes, you're back.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay,
that was just
cool.
me. Hopefully that was just me for everyone.
Let me just check my one sec. Let me just check, make sure we're not. Yeah, it's not processing anything. So it's usually when I've got my mic, I've got a fangled audio desk here, and it does a lot of processing stuff, but it's none of that's turned on, so it shouldn't be going out. It's probably because I've got.
I don't have an answer for that. Is there something else I can help with?
Cheers, Terry. Thanks for
Okay.
that.
Yeah, Siri's not going to help us in the personal branding pathway. Good time.
So I think you need to begin with. You need a kind of clear understanding of who you are, but I don't think you can get to that place without some serious work. And what I was saying is, you can either do it consciously from the start by knowing who you are, or you do it subconsciously by starting to create content, and then you look back over it and go, well, I keep talking about this particular topic, so there must be something there that resonates with me. Working out what your core value sets are is really important, and there's a really good I can't remember the guy's full name. I just call him Dr. Demartini, but there's a test you can do called the Demartini test, which helps you ascertain what your core values are. So mine are family, which is trust, because that's something I always struggle with, was trust. The other one is charity, which is community for me, because it's a sense of belonging that I never felt that I had. And then the last one is leadership, which is work, because it's a role I never thought that I'd step into. So you can probably notice a pattern with a lot of that stuff. What we do generally as adults, we overcompensate for what we didn't have as children, and those become part of what our core value sets are. So part of the Demartini test is to kind of look around you and notice what your work environment's like. My work environment, I've got a lot of motivational quotes here. I've got a lot of pictures of my family. There's a lot of self-help books, design books, creative books, and I'm surrounded by little vinyl toys and movie posters. So all of those things are a reflection of me. And whether we realize it subconsciously or consciously, if we look around at the stuff that's all around us, it forms an identity of who we are. So look at what's around you and use that as a building block for when you're starting to build out your personal brand.
That's interesting.
So what were you going to say?
I was just reflecting on what you were sharing, and I feel like for anyone who's listening in who feels that they might know who they are, but they're not sure, like maybe 50% there. I really like what you said, which is you essentially have two pathways to go for it. You might want to pursue both at the same time, or start with one and then the other, but either consciously or subconsciously, like you said, just take a step back and have a look at what's out there for you. What are the things that you feel naturally appealing to or towards, whatever it is that works in English, and that you can actually feel like you've got an interest about. I feel like don't put too much pressure to get all of the answers from the get-go. Maybe take it as like an exploration phase. These things takes time. And I feel like, for example, your set of value is definitely a strong set, and I really love that. And potentially the values are definitely the one thing that supposedly that might shift, like maybe one or two value might shift along the way, but essentially the core blocks should definitely be there and be stuck with you. I know mine is growth, which is why I've quit jobs when people were like, you've got a student loan to pay, what are you doing? So, I see if this one stays with me, it looks like it is, but some others I know have changed along the process. So
where do you think that I'm gonna do the interview now. Where do you think that comes from? That growth part of you. Where do you think that comes from?
That's a good question. I think what you said, when it comes to the way we are as adults and the things that matter to us are potentially the things we've been lacking of when we were kids. Yes,
Yeah.
I hear that. And I feel like for me, the constraint, I would put it this way, of like being French and staying into like the French education format just didn't work out for me. So I knew soon I needed to go against that model. So growth for me, first of all, was about getting out there into the world, which led to me being 8 years into another country, which is absolutely fine. But yeah, I would say that. Look at you switching sites, like just asking me questions. Just fine.
I like to understand where people's where their core value sets come from. And I think I said this before to you, didn't I, on the previous call? There's a quote that Lisa Brennan Jobs, it's really stuck with me because I heard it a few weeks ago and it makes complete sense. And I think this is what the distillation of a personal brand is to me anyway. When I heard this on so I was listening to Lisa Brennan Jobs' autobiography called Small Fry a few weeks back, and she was the estranged daughter of Steve Jobs, and she said this quote, and I've never heard her dad actually say it, but she overheard him say it. And he said, it's not love that brings people together, but values, shared values. So that's all we're doing on social, is we're putting out what our value sets are. And then people are going, oh, I have the same value sets as you. I can see myself in you. Let's talk and do business. That's it. When you strip all of that stuff away, because I'm a big fan of simplicity and kind of get to the core of what it is, it's do my core value sets overlap with yours? And can I see myself in you?
I love that. And it's really interesting what you say. And I love this quote. I know you already mentioned that, but hearing it again, I'm like, yes, that's the spirit. I feel like for me personally, if I can share a bit of my story, and I'm keen to have your take on that. For example, when it comes to personal branding, I know for me, the thing that was potentially holding me back the most, I think most of you know that, we here today, my place to hang is LinkedIn. I had previous life, in there, previous colleagues would know me in a different angle. And obviously recently I've evolved, obviously I've launched my business. And I feel like for me, potentially what was holding me back is the fear of rejection. As in, I knew these were not the people that I was meant to interact with, but I feel like that definitely has played a huge impact of like holding me back in a way in terms of timeline. Obviously with the accelerator that we did on LinkedIn, well, I had to get in there and, do the fear and feel it anyway, or feel the fear and do it anyway. Do you have any recommendations for anyone who is in that phase of knowing that they need to be more true to their values? Like you said, get to the core, but feel like there is a difference between who they are and what's happening around them.
Yeah, I think like I said, that's probably how I started my journey initially. Was I would kind of stay in my content lane. So I talked about. So I've been a creative for most of my life. I've been in video production for over 20 years. So I know that area really, really well. So when I started producing content, I just focused on that. I focused on sharing my knowledge around video because I felt exceptionally comfortable in that lane talking about my expertise. It started small, but I was comfortable there. And then I always say it's a bit like imagine you're kind of staying in you're in your content lane, and that's fine. You're comfortable with that, but occasionally it's a good idea to swerve into oncoming traffic and just try something different.
That's really, I like this analogy. That's a good one.
So move out of your content lane. Like if you're obviously I produce videos for most of my life, so I was very comfortable producing video content, and I think that's how I grew my following quite quickly, was because because most people are intimidated by video. It's kind of one of the last formats of content that we coach people in, because it's really, really scary being on video. And I felt comfortable in that space. So I was doing something that not a lot of people, and still not a lot of people on the platform, do produce video content. So the fact that I was doing it meant I was kind of, a bit further along than most people were. So I felt comfortable being myself and being a goofball on camera. But then I discovered kind of short form posts and articles. Like I love writing my newsletter now. It's something that I would have never have thought that would have become part of my kind of stream of content. But I really, it's one of my like happy places on a Monday or Tuesday afternoon. I sit down and I smash out my newsletter in like 45 minutes to an hour, and I love it. I love writing. So I think it's a good idea to start with what you feel comfortable in. Start with what you're an expert in, and start talking around the topics that you're just comfortable talking around. And as you interact with more people, I've got this theory that we're all just we're meat sacks basically tied together with bits of story. I think I said this to you before.
You did.
And some of those stories are small stories, and some of those stories are big stories that we tell about ourselves, and those big stories become part of us. So when we're producing content and we're interacting with other people, their stories can also mingle with our stories, and they become part of us as well. I'm fascinated by how algorithmically how we produce content, how it affects other people who interact with it, and how in turn their content, it all comes like the whole kind of web of how all that content kind of comes back and impacts other people is it blows my mind. But I guess the other thing I kind of think of it as is I think of your personal brand is partly your reputation. So it's not just fonts and colorways and branding per se. It's how someone feels about you, and how we interact with other people on the platform. Every single thing that we do, every touch point that we do on a social media platform impacts our personal brand in some way or another. So we're kind of all the time we're kind of building that out by. I guess I liken it to digital karma. We can't really control it. We can only put out good stuff into the world and hope that some of that good stuff comes back. But I've got so what I was saying about putting content out there and interacting with other people, I kind of break it down into three parts. One is your core values, so that's who we think we are based off our core beliefs, our socio-historic upbringing, and these drive our behaviours essentially, either consciously, like I mentioned before, which is when we understand where they come from, or unconsciously, and that can leak out into our content. Then there's perception, how we are actually seen by other people. That's the mental image that we make up in our mind of who that person is. Do I know, like, and trust them really? And that's based off of a feeling more than anything else, because we can never really know somebody. And then there's perceived intention, which is how we would like to be seen by others, either consciously or subconsciously, when creating our personal brand. And that's what we're saying about the whole digital karma thing. We can't control how, we can attempt to build something which is a personal brand, but when we put it out there, it's how people perceive it that impacts it. And the only way we can impact that is through our behaviors. Whether we're aggressive and we're kind of bullish on particular topics and we hold our ground on them, that defines what your personal brand is. If we're passionate about a particular topic, I find as well that we talked about core values earlier, and I find generally on social, when someone really attacks your core value sets, that's when you get that really hostile kind of polarization on social media. It's because you're attacking that person's core value set. You're attacking a core story of what makes them them, and it's like, well, you've just attacked, you've just pulled apart what the fabric of what makes up me. So that's when you get that kind of real pushback from it. So I'm always I'm fascinated by bias and neuroscience and psychology, and how typically when you see that happen on someone's content, or you see it happen in the comment section, you're like, there's something there that's just that's just triggered someone's core value set.
100%. It's fascinating. I think you're right. And to build on what you said, obviously most of it is in the context of the digital creating content, but I feel like exactly what you shared, the three layouts, they are applicable in the real world, if I can put it this way. I mean, especially, for example, when you were talking about the perception, it's either, like you were saying, how people feel and whether they trust you. And there is this quote, which is like, your personal brand is what people have to say about you when you're not in the room, which I think says a lot as well about that. The one thing I would say on the third point, which I think it was around perceived intentions, if I remember this one right.
Yeah,
I feel like
how you want your personal brand to be seen.
Exactly. I was about to say, for anyone who feel like they're still finding their feet with their personal brand, that potentially is an angle for you to also think about, as in, this is where you are today, fair enough, but also, what do you want to do more of? Like, if you were, obviously this is the coach talking right now, but if you were to have a conversation with yourself in 5 years, 10 years time, what would that 5 plus 10 plus years of you would say about whatever the things that you need to do more of, right? So I feel like that's also a nice driver to use potentially.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was saying before about if you actually looked at my early content, some of the first posts I did on the platform,
I'm going to do that after the session. I'll book the afternoon. I'll dig.
They would die. Like it's you. I think you, especially like, I'm slightly introverted. So when I first started on the platform, I found it hard to. I think that's why I stayed in my my content lane and talked about topics that I felt comfortable with. You kind of start to slowly build out a base by doing that, and you get more engagement. Your audience talks to you. You feel like your voice is getting stronger. So it enables you to be bolder and bolder and be more yourself eventually. I think a lot of people, they start out with this, which is business you know, how they'd like to be seen by the world. And then there's goofball real them. And it's when you do this that the magic happens. But it's very difficult to move from that mindset and that mind state to this and bring those two things together.
Because that's the comfort zone.
Yeah,
I don't know which one it is, but yeah.
The spot in between, and it's hard. It is hard. And it's not, you know, your personal brand isn't something that you create and go, okay, I've ticked this box off now, that's it, personal brand's done. Like, it's an ever evolving, constantly, it grows with you. It's who you are. So it's going to evolve over time, and it's going to change as passions and interests and topics that that you love change as well. So allow it to breathe a little bit. Part of what we do with the coaching that I do is helping people kind of start to formulate their personal brand. But I can't ultimately teach you how to be you. Only you can do that. So there comes a point where it's like kind of pushing birds out the nest. It's like, you're gonna have to fly now. Like you're gonna, yeah. So there is that, and there's a fear component to that. It's like, well, how can I? I'm uncomfortable being myself in this digital space, and I think that comes down to some of that is fear based on knowledge gaps. Like, people don't know how to behave or what the etiquette is, but my analogy is if you're, don't be a dick, basically. If you're going to be, if you're going to talk to someone in the real world, talk to them like you would in the real world. Digitally, there's no real difference between the two in my mind, anyway. I think the only thing that we get with digital is this kind of because there's a slight time delay almost. You're kind of there's a kind of barrier or a filter there to kind of creating content and curating it and we have to remember that we're in control of this stuff as well. I think people get worried about things like trolling or negative behavior and that kind of stuff. It's like you have the ability to block people or delete comments or not interact with them. You're in control of this, and I think that's the intimidating part of this. When people first start, it's like, what if all this stuff happens? It's like, well, no, it's okay. You're in the driving seat and you are in control of it, and if you remember that, then it's fine.
Yeah, and just hearing you right now, especially talking around personal branding, essentially it's about being you. I mean, I don't drink coffee, but I felt like you just gave me a shot of espresso because I was like, yes, this is exactly it, right? And I feel, call me naive, but I feel like this is the beauty of really mastering your own personal brand. First of all, there is no such thing as mastering it because, like you said, it's a constant evolving thing. But also, you essentially get to really tap into who's the real you, like make the most out of your time on this planet and be true to yourself. And what I really started to see personally, and I don't know how you feel about that, but once you really tap and you're faithful in a way to your personal brand, you connect with the right person as well. And therefore, this brings you into another journey, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
it really is.
the way I explained it to someone is you kind of go through these. If I refer to the kind of hero's journey, which is what we use a lot as a template, which is a classic template for growth. Think of them as kind of little orbits. So you start out and you go through this growth transformation, and you change here, and it comes back around. And as you circle round, you shoot off into another orbit, and that orbit gets bigger.
It's really interesting.
And then you come back and you go to the next one, and that gets bigger. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger each time. And it's there's an inherent truth to being to being yourself, and there is a power in that. And I think when you look at yourself, and I was interacting with one of Ryan's posts this morning, who was also on the LCAP program, and I think I left a comment, and he's saying, you know, there's gold in the dark parts of ourselves, or the parts of ourselves that we're not comfortable with looking at. There's gold in that stuff, and there's a lot of the time it's where a lot of our power comes from as well. So if we're willing to do the work to look at that stuff, it can be extremely powerful.
Yeah. So anyone, your takeaway from the session, just go deep, dig deep, get into the gold of the dark places that are in your brain.
And you know what? It was COVID that forced me to do that. So I find it ironic that one of the things that I tell companies is that when we're kind of doing an intro call with them is that COVID was the point at which digital picked up every single organization in the world and smashed its head against the wall repeatedly. And some people went, oh, that felt funny. Let's just carry on doing what we've always done. Some people went, whoa, we never want that to happen ever again. So we need to put plans in place to prevent that. And I find it ironic that it's almost kind of the same journey. I was reborn in the fires of COVID. I think COVID forced a lot of people we couldn't go out, we couldn't talk to people, we had to stay indoors and deal with our stuff. And it made or it broke a lot of people, I think. So I think it's quite nice that COVID was the high watermark at which it's like, okay, digital is here now, and my own personal brand was born out of that, which is just like, for me, it makes perfect sense.
It's so cool.
Yeah, but it's you have to go deep, and you have to do the work. And some people are scared of doing that. So
it's a scary thing for sure. But anyone listening in, come on, like, you've got this. You can come to chat to me or to Nick at any time, and this is the greatest gift that you can literally give to yourself. The sooner you get into that path, I think the better, right? I know we just have. Sorry,
it makes me sound crazy, but I think a lot of the time, a lot of my content for me is therapy. It's just like me getting out, like I feel this way today, or I feel like this happened, and I feel this way, and it's a good way of just I guess it's a bit like digital journaling. You're just kind of getting out thoughts that you're in your head, and you're documenting them somewhere. So I mean, if you looked at my content over 3 years, you'd probably be like, this guy's a gibbering madman, the stuff that he talks about, which is probably true. But yeah, that's how I see it. That's how I see my content. I think as partly it's therapy.
I would agree with that 100%. We only have a few minutes left. I mean, as usual, this conversation is just go way too quick. Any final thoughts, final words of wisdom that you want to share for anyone interested in the topic?
Yeah, just know thyself, really. Do the work, and look at who you are, and challenge some of the preconceptions of who you think you are. You're not defined by your job or your job role. That's a small component of who you are as a person. So look at some of the things that you're passionate about, that you really care deeply and love, because you can talk about those topics, and you'll be. The beautiful thing about talking about topics that you're passionate about and that you love is that you're animated, and you care about them. So if you care about them, your audience is probably likely to care about them as well. If you're talking about something that is the most dull topic in the universe, but you're passionate about it, you'll smash it.
You will. You will probably make it not dull anymore, because we'll see your passion through whatever you're talking about, for sure.
You care deeply enough about it, and again, those core value sets will overlap with someone else to go that, I'm a nerd too. I love trains. like you talk about trains a lot, and I'm really into trains too. Let's talk.
Let's have a train conversation. Yay!
Yeah. You get my drift. It's just it's unlocking things that you care deeply about and that you're passionate about. And if you look at those things, if there's a recurring pattern or a recurring theme to the things that you're talking about, there's probably something there that you can kind of hook onto and go, okay, well, this obviously forms part of my core belief structure.
Well, I don't think there is a better way to finish.
I'm not into trains, by the way.
Well, no judgment. This is a safe space.
No judgments. No judgments.
I'll send you a train post if I see some of them on LinkedIn. Well, Nick, it's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anyone who has any question watching the replay, just shoot them our way. We'll be happy to answer them. Take care, everyone. Bye, Nick.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.